Welcome to the Tom Sense Show. We have got a massive hour ahead, from an American space boom to the deep state surveillance net taking hits across the country. Remember, we take your questions right now, directly on the air. Drop them in the chat on YouTube or over on X whenever something crosses your mind during the broadcast. If it is a real question with some meat on the bone, I will answer it right here in the middle of the news. And if it is just noise, we keep rolling. Let us get. President Donald Trump just put American dominance back where it belongs, right at the top of the launch pad. He signed a brand new national security presidential memorandum, creating a national space transportation policy that tears up the old rules from 2013. The goal is clear and bold. 1,000 commercial launches and re-entries every single year by 2030. To make it happen, federal agencies have been ordered to slash through environmental red tape, lock down dedicated wireless spectrum, and open up federal lands for brand new launch pads. White House Office of Science and Technology Policy Director Michael Kratsios praised the move, which puts private American enterprise front and center. Jason, say, Shlomi Pearl over on X, jumping ahead of the rundown. Great one. Let's move on. NASA is now directed to lean heavily on private contractors to put boots on the moon by 2028 and push robotic missions straight to Mars. Commercial aerospace bosses are celebrating the deregulation because under the previous rules, building a rocket was faster than getting a permit to fire it. Naturally, environmental groups are crying foul, claiming that fast-tracking these ranges will harm coastal habitats. For years, the left told us that exploring the stars had to wait until every single bureaucrat signed 50 forms about nesting birds near the pad. Donald Trump just reminded the world that America builds the future while other countries drown in their own paperwork. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the Trump administration are tightening the economic vice on the terror masters in Tehran. No more pretending these terrorists operate as an independent political party. Alongside that move, the Office of Foreign Assets Control slapped sanctions on 10 individuals running a massive cash courier network. We are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars moved in physical bags on commercial passenger flights between Iran. Over in Beirut, government officials are sweating, complaining that these broad financial restrictions might further wreck their already fragile banking system. Meanwhile, Iranian officials tried to shrug it off, calling the measures totally ineffective. When people are reduced to sneaking suitcases of paper cash onto commercial airliners because they cannot use a standard bank, it means the financial noose is working exactly as intended. Scott Bessent is turning off the money tap, and the Iranian regime is finding out that funding terror gets very expensive when America decides to hold you accountable. We have somber news from Western Alaska, where 8 people lost their lives in a tragic charter plane crash near a remote military Looking at the YouTube chat, at Shlomi Pearl 4946 is asking about the plan for Iran. I do not have the details of the broader playbook in front of me right now, but what I can tell you is this administration military rescue teams alongside local first responders braved harsh elements to reach the crash site early Friday morning, but sadly, there were no survivors on board. The National Transportation Defense Department officials confirmed the 8 fatalities and stated that next of kin notifications are actively taking place before the victims' names are released publicly. Aviation safety experts are already calling for tighter flight tracking and mandatory weather deconfliction systems for small utility operators flying in extreme northern conditions. Operating in the Alaskan wilderness has always presented serious hazards, but our service members and civilian contractors take on those risks every day to keep our northern defenses secure. Our prayers are with the families of those 8 individuals who died serving their country in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. A massive pushback against automated mass surveillance is sweeping across 36 states right now. Roadside cameras owned by Flock Safety are being systematically disabled across the country. People are taking saws to metal camera poles, spraying paint, and placing stickers over optical lenses, and completely ripping apart solar power boxes. Flock Safety Chief Executive Garrett Langley defended his cameras, claiming the data is locked down tight and essential for police officers solving violent crimes. But civil liberties groups and digital privacy advocates point out that this is warrantless dragnet tracking of regular citizens. Flock rolled out a new search system called Nova that links car license plates directly to private personal identities in seconds, tracking where you drive without a single judge signing a warrant. Law enforcement officials are issuing warnings that anyone caught disabling the hardware will face felony criminal mischief charges. Meanwhile, several town councils are now rethinking their vendor contracts entirely. When a company builds an automated system that logs every trip to the grocery store, the church, or the doctor, they should not act surprised when ordinary Americans decide they do not want to live inside an uninvited digital checkpoint. The legacy media's war on basic reality claimed another casualty, and this time a veteran journalist decided he had finally seen enough. Longtime Seattle Times sports columnist Matt Calkins abruptly resigned after 11 years at the paper because his editors refused to publish his latest column. What was the offending topic? He wrote about Indiana fever guard Sophie Cunningham and two female student athletes who backed her public stance against men competing in women's sports categories. Calkins published his thoughts on Substack, explaining that killing his piece was just the latest example of editors censoring anything that challenges left-wing newsroom orthodoxies. Management at the Seattle Times tried to hide behind procedure, claiming the topic was not coordinated properly in advance with the editorial board. It is the classic corporate media excuse when an opinion makes the newsroom uncomfortable. When an experienced sports writer cannot write about female athletes defending their own sports without his bosses spiking the piece, the problem is not protocol. The establishment press demands total silence on basic biology, and Matt Calkins chose to walk out the front door rather than pretend 2 + 2 = 5. The latest now on the standoff on the Korean Peninsula, where Washington and Seoul have abruptly wrapped up their joint military drills. The annual Ulchi Freedom Shield exercises ended 6 full days ahead of schedule following a direct White House directive to scale back the maneuvers. This decision came just hours after North Korea launched a barrage of short-range ballistic missiles into the sea in protest. The White House aimed to lower temperatures in the region, but North Korean officials instantly dismissed the gesture, stating that talks remain frozen until all joint operations are canceled permanently. In South Korea, defense analysts and opposition lawmakers are sounding alarms, arguing that shortening scheduled exercises weakens deterrence and gives Pyongyang an easy diplomatic win. The North Korean regime fires off a handful of missiles into the ocean whenever they want attention, and backing down only teaches a dictator that his temper tantrums work. American military readiness should be dictated by American strength, not by whatever fits the mood in Pyongyang. That is the news this hour. Stay sharp, stay informed, and I will see you right back here next time on The Tom Sense Show.